So in this video, we'll be showing you clips from 5 different videos from our pre-seen analysis pack. And the first clip is from the pre-seen analysis series. It's vital that you fully analyze your pre-seen, and this requires a detailed examination of the case study, ensuring that every section is fully understood. So our pre-seen analysis video provides a page-by-page analysis of every section of the pre-seen, and it ensures you don't miss anything important, and it helps you to build a comprehensive understanding of the material. And this is vital if you're going to gain high marks in the exam. So in this clip, we've taken a section from our pre-seen analysis video series.
But actually what we're going to do now is move away slightly from Trimayr. We're going to relate everything back to Trimayr. But now in the pre-seen, we take a kind of broader look at the industry as a whole. And we're going to start off with some words about hairdressing. So there are 52,000 hairdressing salons in Dasland, and 80% of those employ fewer than 10 staff. So what we're seeing here is a highly fragmented market where most salons are independent, owner-managed businesses. Now, the other note I put on screen is that fragmented industries often mean intense competition and low barriers to entry. And I'm sure we're all aware, if we've been to the UK, we see lots of different salons on town high street, especially we're including barbershops in that as well. Now, just as a side note, independent salons may operate with lower overheads, and that means that price competition is going to be really, really strong. Now, the reason that independent salons have lower overheads compared to large chains is, firstly, they normally have a lower rent because they're operating in smaller, lower cost locations like high street shops or even home-based setups. They've got fewer staff, so wages are going to be a smaller expense. Some salons are only employing the owner plus maybe 1 or 2 assistants. It's a simple business structure, so they're not paying franchise fees like the Trimayr people will be. They're not contributing to national marketing or corporate overheads, so the costs are really minimal. And unlike big chains, independent salons can source products freely, so they can choose cheaper suppliers possibly, or bulk buying discounts, whereas obviously people in the Trimayr salons, for example, are going to have to procure the instructed products that they use. So we're seeing this kind of fragmented industry with really tough pricing. We're already starting to see that if Trimayr is going to be successful in this area, it's going to have to differentiate itself. And it's going to have to differentiate itself through branding or customer loyalty programs or service innovation if they want to compete in this fragmented market. Now, the next thing to note, there's only a small number of larger businesses that own and operate kind of multiple salons, 2 or more salons. And even these are kind of local or regional chains, smaller local or regional chains, rather than national players. Now, this suggests a couple of things: that there's limited economies of scale for one. So unlike industries where national chains dominate, most larger players in this industry are regionally focused, and that really reduces competitive pressure from large corporations. And secondly, there's opportunities for expansion. If multi-salon businesses remain local, then there could be gaps in the market for a strong national player like Trimayr. Again, if we're starting to think, I know this is the wider hairdressing industry, but if we're starting to think about Trimayr, we already thought we own a couple of salons or a few salons ourselves. Possibly there's the possibility of maybe acquiring strong local salon chains, and maybe that'd be one way for Trimayr to quickly scale its footprint. But These are all elements that we will come back to later on, but we can see some things already starting to appear and opportunities, all those kind of things. And that's what we draw our attention to when we go through these videos. Okay, then our final point for this kind of section is that out of 52,000 hairdressing salons, only 6 operate on a national level. Now, 2 of these chains own all their salons. So kind of as we touched upon in the introduction, we saw that that's going to require really high levels of capital investment, but it does mean they've got greater control over branding and service quality because they're actually running their salons. And the final 4 out of the 6 nationwide chains operate as franchises. So this allows for much quicker expansion with lower risk because they don't have to provide all that high capital investment that we see with the salons. But that does mean they're not as in control over their service quality. So they've got to have really strong franchisee oversight if they want to maintain their standards and their reputation and their branding. Now, as we know, Trimayr is one of these. My massive highlighter there is a franchise heavy business, so that means it has to ensure franchisee support and its compliance systems are strong if they want to maintain their national reputation. So what we've seen so far, Trimayr operates in a fragmented industry. It's competing against many small independent salons who are able to offer really cost-effective haircuts, etc., because they've got lower overheads, and they're also competing against a handful of national brands. So they're going to really have to rely on brand recognition, customer loyalty, and consistent service quality to keep attracting customers. They've also got to think about how they are going to expand, maybe through acquisitions, new franchise openings, or maybe corporate-owned salons. But again, that's something we'll come back to in later videos. And as we've already stressed a few times, and we will keep coming back to, that franchise oversight is critical. Now, we know 4 of the 6 national players use franchising, so standardized service and branding is vital for success. Okay, so there we go. Lovely picture of a haircut there. And we can now go down and look at the different services that hairdressers supply, or provide, I should say, rather than supply. Okay, so we've got a range of services here. And the first one we're going to look at cutting and styling. Now, cutting and styling is really the foundation of the business. So haircuts and styling form the core revenue stream for most hairdressing salons. Customers may want like a simple trim or complex styling, or perhaps even blow drying for special occasions. And that makes service variety essential. Now we're thinking back to our CIMA syllabus. We're thinking about E2 for customer value and differentiation, wherein salons have to offer a range of services to meet different customer needs. But we can also start to think about pricing strategies as well from P2. So maybe thinking about how different services allow for tiered pricing models to maximum revenue per customer visit. So if we bring this all back to Trimayr, as we're going to be trying to do throughout this pre-seen, well, Trimayr could introduce premium pricing tiers for specialized styling services and so increase average spend per visit. Now, I've already highlighted blow drying, and you can see the annotation up on screen is a service add-on. So we can see, or we know, customers often pair blow drying with their haircut. So what we've got is a really effective upsell service. So salons are benefiting from increased customer spend because obviously their value is being added to the appointment, and also the fact that blow dry is temporary. So maybe that encourages return visits for styling. But again, we're also seeing the importance there of providing a good service to always get customers coming back. People always need their haircut, so we got to make sure they get their haircut at Trimayr. And how can Trimayr encourage that? Okay, the next service we're going to talk about is hair coloring services. Now, these typically command higher prices and profit margins than standard haircuts, and customers seek full color changes, root touch-ups and highlights. And so what we've got here is another example of an opportunity for repeat business, because hair growth requires regular maintenance. Otherwise, the customer's hair grows out in its natural color. Now, another element to this coloring and highlights is that really it's a specialist skill. Not all salons offer high quality coloring services because it requires trained specialists to mix and apply dyes correctly. So customers, of course, value expertise, and as well as brand trust, make this an area where premium pricing is justified. When we were talking about very small salons earlier on, possibly the owner and a couple of apprentices or a couple of assistants, they might not offer these kind of services. And this is what helps distinguish us. This is what helps us justify our higher price points, which we'll come into later on, than these kind of smaller firms, and shows how we can really have success even though there's a huge number of salons in Dazzland. Now, of course, we can justify premium pricing, but obviously the specialist skill set also increases staff cost because we are having to employ people that have that skill set. Obviously, that's with our own salons when we're actually employing the hairdressers themselves as opposed to our franchisees. But it also gives us another opportunity for differentiation. Perhaps we could position ourselves as a premium colouring band. Maybe we do invest in advanced style training and exclusive high-end colouring products. That's, again, something we'll come back to throughout this video. Something very similar, something called chemical treatments. So these things like perming, straightening and relaxing. These are complex procedures which require specialist training. Now, unlike simple haircuts and more like colouring, these services justify premium pricing because of the skill and the risks. So obviously it's involving chemicals that are involved. So very similar to the colouring. Not all salons are offering chemical treatments because of the specialist expertise required. So it's another element where we can offer treatments like chemical treatments and can position ourselves or the services as high-end services that justify premium pricing. And again, just like we saw the colouring, maybe that's a way we could differentiate ourselves, from the rest of the market.
Next up, we've got a clip from our strategic analysis. It's extremely important that you have the ability to identify how the pre-seen relates to key models and theory, and the examiners will expect students to demonstrate a good understanding of the models and theories and make the appropriate links to the case study during the exam. It can be hard to fully analyze a company using models you've only recently learned and be confident that you've got it right. So our strategic analysis has done that hard work for you. So in this clip, we're going to take a look at our strategic analysis video.
And we are going to start with the organization's mission. So basically what we're going to be looking at here is Trimayr's fundamental purpose. Why does it exist? Now, when we think about Trimayr's mission in the pre-seen, it isn't directly provided, which is relatively common in the MCS. But we can clearly infer the purpose of Trimayr based on their actions, their business structure, and overall market strategy. So Trimayr's implied mission is to provide high quality, differentiated hairdressing services through a strong franchise model that's appealing to two distinct customer segments. We've got one in the mid-market, which is obviously Trimayr Pop, and one in upmarket, which was Trimayr Sheen. Now, Trimayr strives to innovate continually, lead trends, and sustain customer satisfaction and loyalty whilst maximizing franchisee and shareholder value. Now, when we think about the strategies, the values, and the policies, again, they're not explicitly stated, but we can carry on to infer these. So I've got strategy on screen first, and obviously what they are aiming to do is to grow via a franchise model, provide innovative product offerings, which keeps customers coming back and keeps customers from moving to competitors, and also have really robust franchisee support systems so that the franchisees offer this really great service so the Trimayr brand is protected and can continue to grow and continue to be successful. Now, what about the values? So what does the organization stand for? And I think what we can infer from the pre-seen is that the Trimayr brand stands for quality, based on where it sits in the markets. Its values are customer loyalty, because obviously it wants to get that trust from customers, because we know salon customers very rarely switch brands once they're happy with one. They also value innovation, because that's what helps differentiate them, and they value professionalism, because again that helps protect the brand. And we can see all this not only because it's mentioned in the pre-seen, but also because it's been reflected in their kind of high investment in training, performance monitoring, as well as customer services. And then the final element is policies. So what policies are in place to protect what we've talked about so far? Well, obviously there are the consistent franchise policies. We know they've got the 5-year renewable franchise contracts, which they don't necessarily have to renew if the brand or the salon owners aren't performing as Trimayr think they ought. There's the mandatory adherence to style guidelines. There's rigorous performance management and quality control, which is all taken through the head office, as well as through the initial training and the CPD training at the academy. So that's how they reinforce their values. So although they don't explicitly come out in the pre-seen and say, here's our mission, here's our strategy, here's our values, here's our policies, I think we can quite clearly pick out Trimayr's overall strategic direction and business actions, and they reveal everything we've just talked about. So hopefully, as they're only inferred, by us putting them all in one place and kind of setting them out and giving them structure, these are much easier for you to use going forward, and obviously you can refer to them as implied insights if you have to answer any related questions. Okay, so there we go. That is the mission of Trimayr. Now we can go over to the balanced scorecard. And obviously what the balanced scorecard is doing is helping Trimayr measure its performance across multiple areas. Obviously the focus isn't just on the financial results, so it's all about taking a holistic approach. And basically this is all about emphasizing the kind of interconnectedness of not only the financial success, but of satisfied and loyal customers and efficient internal processes and ongoing growth and learning. So let's take a look at the balance scorecard, and obviously we will take a look at the financial perspective first. So let's bring those up. So Trimayr's ultimate goal is to deliver strong financial performance. So we can see there was an increased revenue growth and operating profit this year, which came from franchise royalties and product sales. Now obviously this financial strength allowed Trimayr to reward shareholders with dividends and also to reinvest in training and innovation and maintain the high quality standards. So things are looking good by these measures, but obviously these strong financial results do depend on these other elements in the balance scorecard. So let's go and take a look at the learning and growth perspective. So what can we see here? What metrics would we use here? Well, obviously investment in Trimayr Academy, apprenticeships, and regular professional development ensures that franchisees and employees deliver consistently high quality services. So low staff turnover and a strong reputation as a preferred employer are critical for Trimayr. And well-trained, motivated staff directly enhance internal operations, and that improves customer satisfaction, and obviously that drives the financial results we're just looking at. So obviously, if we go now onto our internal perspective, because obviously if it wants to deliver everything it wants to deliver, then Trimayr has to excel in key internal processes. So what have I got on screen here? Well, rigorous franchise management, so inspections and performance reviews, and strong data-driven decisions like the BIS system. These all underpin different perspectives, or the different perspectives. Now, Trimayr's internal innovation through hair technology ensures continuous differentiation, and that in turn attracts customers willing to pay premiums. Operational excellence and innovative practices are the foundations of the customer satisfaction and so financial performance. So let's go and take a look at the customer perspective. And obviously our financial growth, or Trimayr's financial growth, is really closely linked to Trimayr's customer loyalty and satisfaction. Through careful segmentation, Trimayr Sheen and Trimayr Pop, Trimayr ensures that customers consistently receive tailored experiences, generating repeat visits, positive word of mouth, and increased average spend. Now, customer satisfaction measured by KPIs, so the average spend per customer, retention and waiting and service times, is crucial because, as we've already talked about, the satisfied customers drive Trimayr's financial success through increased franchise revenue, profitability, and market share. So here we go. Here's Trimayr's balance scorecard, and basically what we're showing here is that its financial success is not isolated, and its results from strategic management of customer relationships, effective internal operations, and ongoing staff development. Now, strong learning and growth fuel operational excellence, and that leads directly to customer satisfaction, repeat business, and then ultimately the increased revenue and profitability. So by looking at it like this and viewing Trimayr like this, seeing how it's all interconnected, it really helps to ensure Trimayr's long-term strategic health and sustainability.
We're casting the net a little bit wider now with a look at the wider industry in which the Pre-seen company operates with our industry analysis video. It is critical to demonstrate to the examiner that you have fully understood the Pre-seen industry as a key element to gaining extra high marks in your case study exam. Researching the industry can be a laborious process, especially when you're not sure which information is useful and which isn't. And our team has spent hours doing this research for you, finding the information that will help you to achieve a wider perspective of the industry and build a deeper knowledge in preparation for your exam. So in this next clip, we'll be taking a look at our industry analysis video.
So first off, chapter 1, how to use this analysis. Now this is going to be super brief. All I'm going to do in this section is quickly take you over the key thing that we are told in the pre-seen about your role, which is that you are a financial manager, as you'd expect, as it's the management level, in Trimayr's head office. Your prime responsibilities are associated with management accounting, and you report directly to Megan Connor, the senior financial manager, who reports to the financial director. Now, Megan Connor is going to come up quite a lot, and it's just a really good thing to make sure you've got that exact chain of command sorted out in your head for when you get to the exam. So that's one key thing to look at in this chapter. This chapter is mostly just an explanation of stuff, so there's no need to go into it in too much detail. But the other thing I wanted to draw your attention to was this paragraph at the end here, so which basically explains what the point of this industry analysis is. So we've scoured the web, we've scoured journals and magazines, and we've looked for the most relevant information for your exam. The idea is that we do the difficult bit, we collect all of the right information for you, we kind of look all over, all these different journals, all these different newspapers, and we make sure that you've got all the information you need in one place. So all you need to do is read this document, make sure you understand it, and then you'll be one step ahead for the exam. You'll have all the key points and then all the key examples, as we'll get onto later. So yeah, that is the point of this document. So nice and quick, nice and simple, that is the first chapter. Let's move on now to something a little bit more exciting, which is chapter 2, which is an introduction to the hairdressing industry. Now, I'll leave you to read this scintillating introduction all to yourself. What I wanted to draw your attention to here was part of the early history of hairdressing. And as we can see here, hairdressing is one of the world's oldest professions, dating back thousands of years. So we can say that getting hairstyled has always been super important, and it's thought that the kind of closeness and intimacy you might feel with your hairdresser, or maybe not if he's giving you a really bad haircut, but the intimacy that can be felt between a hairdresser and their clients has been something that's existed in the Roman times, it's been documented in the Roman times, and probably long before that as well. We talk about old professions, and it is really one of the ones that we see very early on, and has existed for almost all of human history. And as today, barbershops were not just spaces to pay money to get your hair cut, but also social hubs, places where people would gather to discuss politics, philosophy, and daily life. Now, we've actually discovered bone and wood combs as well as flint blades to cut the hair from the ancient Egyptian times. They're some of the oldest ancient Egyptian tools that archaeologists have found. And it's fair to assume that these tools have been around for even longer. There's even older examples of these tools floating around, just showing how long hairdressing has been a big deal. Hairstyles in the time of the ancient Egyptians and before, and the Greeks, could denote a load of things. They could define social status, they could show your age, they could show your job, they could even show your class, your sexuality, and sometimes your ethnicity. So they could have some huge importance and some huge connotations to the society at the time. And as I just said, this is not just ancient Egypt or ancient Rome, it's ancient Greece, but also all sorts of ancient cultures. It seems that wherever we've found humans and wherever we've found human remains, we've also found evidence of hairdressing. It's evolved everywhere in every single different civilization, which is definitely pretty interesting. So that's how things started, and largely they were very similar for a long time. I'm not sure you could really say that the medieval hairdresser was all that different to the ancient Egyptian one, except for maybe in the different styles they were doing. I'm sure they weren't quite identical. During the Renaissance, we see some slight changes, we see some kind of specialization. So this is mostly because of things like wigs, which really denote class. They're a really kind of key way of showing social status. And then also these things like powdered hairstyles and these kind of more intricate hairstyles. There's more technology, there's more things that can be done. And of course, these things cost money, so they're a really good way of demonstrating that you have money, in the same way that someone might wear an expensive watch today to kind of show that their status is high. Well, in these times, people would have expensive wigs, they'd have expensive hairstyles to kind of show that as well. It was a great way of showing your personality. Things stay relatively similar in that for the average person during these times, a trip to the hairdressers was quite a simple thing. It was to go and get your hair cut short so it wasn't annoying. There's not really so much emphasis on lots of different styles. Well, that changes significantly in the 20th century, which is where we see the kind of big transformation in hairdressing that makes it more similar to what we know today. And this is mostly because of lots of new technology. So the electric hairdryer, I don't know how many of you have one of these in your house, but they have become ubiquitous. The chemical perm's slightly fallen out of favour, but the general idea of using chemicals to really adjust how hair looks really means there's loads more options for styling, because almost any hair can be made to look in almost any style because of chemicals and different heat treatments. And finally, I think the most important one is this one, the synthetic dyes. You'll have seen people on every single street in every single city with dyed hair. It seems like it's become super popular today and a really good way of expressing personality and kind of an addition of style and fashion. And this is really cemented by the rise of Hollywood glamour, of Hollywood kind of actors and people wanting to look like them in the 1950s, and then also the counterculture movement, and then the experimental styles of the 1980s, the 1990s. Key one to picture here is a punk with their big mohawk, kept up by, I think, egg whites was how they did it back in the day. But anyway, that was the time when things really changed to be more similar to what we see today. And I will leave you to have a look at the Today section in your own time, and also to have a look at the industry life cycle in the document yourself, because I'm not too sure there's that much for me to add to these sections. They're pretty standard. So let's apply some of that to Trimayr itself. Of course, we can see in the pre-seen that Trimayr is founded in 1974, which is a period when the hairdressing industry, as we've just discussed, had already been established and was kind of entering its phase of being most similar to what we see today. And so the growth we've just talked about in treatment availability and different ways to express yourself means that hairdressing is booming at the time, because there's loads of different treatments and loads of different styles that people see and they want to get, and it's becoming much more of a kind of thing you do regularly rather than a thing you just do for the sake of keeping your hair tidy like it was in the past. They're much more styling. So of course we can see that Trimayr has capitalized on this trend and on this growth by expanding its operations and then later adopting a franchise model to expand them further. Now, we can also say that Trimayr has evolved with the industry as it moves into its maturity phase, because they have split their different branding strategies across Trimayr Sheen, which is upmarket, and Trimayr Pop. So we can say they're really targeting different sections with their marketing. And their emphasis on staff training, franchisee support, and strict brand guidelines mirror how successful salon chains have maintained their competitiveness. What Trimayr have done, in a nutshell, is not special. We see it all across hairdressing companies and franchises in the world. And one key thing we can pick out as a trend, as hairdressing has kind of entered the current phase it's in, is this demand for eco-friendly products and personalised services and digital convenience. And this could be an area that Trimayr needs to look into and put more focus on so that it can stay ahead in the industry.
The next clip is taken from one of our most popular videos, the Top 10 Issues. Top 10 Issues video identifies the 10 most likely issues to appear in the exam based on our expertise and experience in this area. And our expert gives guidance on how to deal with the issues in your answers, provides advice on which models to use, and key points that you should raise. Based on our experience of analysing CIMA case studies for over 10 years, our predictions have been extremely accurate in previous exams, with around 70 to 80% of topics in the real exams being covered in our top 10 lists. So take a look now at this clip from our top 10 issues video.
Well, sustainability is a topic that's increasingly important both in the real world and in your exam. And now this isn't just about being ethical. This issue is fundamental to how Trimayr secures its long-term competitive advantage and maintains its brand reputation. So why have we selected sustainability and CSR as a key issue for your exam? Now, the main issue is the increasing focus from multiple stakeholder groups. Customers are actively choosing brands that align with their values, employees are attracted to organizations with strong ethics, and investors are increasingly factoring sustainability into their decisions. Now, given Trimayr's reliance on franchise operations, these pressures are amplified. How franchises operate on a day-to-day basis affects the whole company's reputation. Now, in the exam, scenarios you might face around sustainability could involve ethical sourcing of products, questions about cruelty-free ingredients, sustainable packaging, or even the environmental footprint of suppliers. Another area could be the fair treatment of apprentices and employees. Are they paid fairly? Are they properly trained? And do they have opportunities for genuine career progression? Diversity and inclusion might also feature. Trimayr face criticism or public scrutiny if stakeholders feel these areas are being neglected or inconsistently applied across franchises. Now, when discussing sustainability and CSR, the critical points you should raise include the direct link between ethical practices and Trimayr's brand value. Now, ethical behavior doesn't just minimize risk, it actively builds customer loyalty, enhancing long-term profitability. Now, highlighting ethical franchise operations as a unique selling point can attract more committed and higher quality franchisees. You should also emphasize the effective CSR practices can lead to better terms with investors, favorable media coverage, and potentially lower regulatory scrutiny. And these are all really important for financial and operational stability. Now, from your CIMA syllabus, there are two key theory areas relevant here. First, from P2, we have ethical implications and the public interest, and this theory underlines how ethical failures or scandals can severely damage brand reputation, and that illustrates the importance of proactive risk management. Secondly, from E2, there's the area of culture and CSR, emphasizing how Trimayr's head office can actively embed ethical values through its decentralized franchise network. Tools from E2, such as cultural web analysis, could also be used to examine how well the ethical practices are genuinely adopted across the network. So, ultimately, sustainability and CSR is a vital strategic issue for Trimayr. Managing it effectively doesn't just avoid ethical pitfalls, it actively builds brand strength, attracts better talent and customers, and helps Trimayr secure a sustainable competitive advantage. Now, this is a critical issue for Trimayr because of the multiple income streams it operates. Franchise royalties, product sales, and training services. These all need to be recognized accurately and consistently, both to meet accounting standards and to ensure the company's financial reporting remains trustworthy. Now, we've chosen this as a top 10 because of the technical accounting requirements under the IFRS 15 and the range of activities Trimayr is involved in. Revenue recognition is one of the most common areas where businesses get things wrong, and it's likely to appear in the exam in some form, especially given Trimayr's bundled franchise model. It's also a really relatively new standard which has started appearing in case studies, and it's also quite easy for the examiners to assess, so that's another reason why it's likely to feature in the exam. So, what are some of the likely issues? Well, you may be asked to evaluate whether Trimayr is acting as principal or agent when selling hair care products to franchisees, or to assess how training services should be recognised. Are they part of the initial franchise fee, or do they represent a separate performance obligation? These are all classic IFRS 15 challenges. So make sure you identify each revenue stream clearly and explain how IFRS's 5-step model applies. Identifying the contract, identifying performance obligations, determining transaction price, allocating price, and recognizing revenue. Now, franchise fees may need to be spread over time, while product sales may be recognized up front if delivery and control have transferred. Now, obviously, from F2, the key theory here is IFRS 15 and how it applies to bundled services. So students should be able to discuss principal versus agent distinction, performance obligations, and the importance of matching revenue to service delivery. Now, maybe you should also consider ethical implications of revenue recognition from P2 and how misstating income could mislead stakeholders. So ultimately, understanding IFRS 15 is essential for interpreting Trimayr's financial results accurately, and it's an area where technical accuracy can really help you stand out in the exam.
Our final clip is from our mini mock debrief video. We produce a range of mock exams for each sitting, And alongside each of those mocks is a video debrief. And in these debrief videos, our experienced tutor analyzes every question and takes you through a step-by-step guide on the best way to approach them. And by watching debrief videos, you'll learn to understand how to pick out all of the key information in the task and the requirements. You'll use that information to build an effective plan. Many students fail due to poor answer planning. And then that will help you to formulate an excellent answer. So in our sample video, tutor will take you through question 1 of the mini mock.
So here we go, let's scroll down. Now the very first thing we do in an Astranti approach is just to ignore all this. And what we go down to is the weightings of the task. Now we know, don't we, that you have 3 hours for your MCS exam, you have 4 tasks to complete. Quick calculation for me tells me that's 45 minutes per task. Now what we do is we start by working out how we're going to manage our time and marks across the entire task. So, as I said, we've got 45 minutes to do task 1, and the whole exam is worth 100 marks, so we can assume it's 25 marks per tasks. Now we can also see that for task 1, it's been split into 3 subtasks, A, B, C. Now what we can do is use these weightings to let us know how long we should be spending on each subtask, because obviously we don't want to be spending 5 minutes on subtask A, which is worth 48% of your marks, and then 40 minutes on subtask C, which is only worth 28% of your marks, because you're not maximizing your time. So obviously we can use these to work out our approach. So 48% means that it's worth 12 marks, and it means that we should be spending 22 minutes on it. Subtask B is worth 24% of our time in our marks, so it's worth 6 marks, and we're going to be spending 11 minutes on it. And then finally, subtask C is worth slightly more, 28%, so it's worth 7 marks, and that's 12 minutes of our time. So this breakdown gives us a clear framework to build from. It shows us where we need to spend our time for task 1, and we know that nearly half of it is going to be spent on subtask A. So we need to make sure we give it the attention it deserves, but also we don't want to go on to half an hour on subtask A, because it will mean we simply won't be able to pick up the marks for B and C because we won't give ourselves enough time. So we've always got our eye on the time. Okay, so that's what we're going to do for each task, and it's what we do with every mock. That's our approach. Okay. So now what we're going to do is look to see what we are doing for subtask A. Now again, we're going to ignore all this to start with. What we do in an Astranti approach is we go straight to what we call the requirement line, because if we've got the requirement line, we know what we need to do, and if there's any extra information we need to read, like in the context or in any attached material, we already know what we're picking out. We're not reading all the material and then reading the requirement line, then having to go back to the material to pick out all the useful information. We're trying to make our time as efficient as possible by only giving everything one read. Now, I should stress that because I'm doing this as a kind of teaching video, that sometimes we will be going back and forth just to pick out points. But obviously in the exam itself, you want to streamline your approach as much as possible. Okay, so let's look now at what we're being asked to do in subtask A. So the question says, please provide a report on options that a business such as Trimayr has available to it in developing a new business model. So what we've got here is a very open question. There's really no requirement to recommend or evaluate in depth. What they are looking for, a key word I'm picking out here, is options. So a range of realistic ideas that show we understand how a business model can adapt. Now, it's not asking us to reference any specific part of the material, but if we do go to our context now, we will see there's a comment about Palo and True expanding their apprenticeship program and low-cost haircuts, and that's clearly the context that we are responding to. So we can see there's been evolving trends in the hairdressing industry, and we want to improve our profitability, and we want to see, or the board want to see, how we can develop or adapt our business model to align with the current consumer preferences and industry trends. Our major competitor, Palo and True, we know them well from the pre-seen, don't we, have announced a significant expansion of its apprenticeship training programs, and they provide low-cost haircuts to attract the budget-conscious customers, and see attached material. So that's something we talked about in the pre-seen, wasn't it? That we know these academies offer cheap training programs, and obviously they're rolling this out in a bid to kind of hoover up kind of the down market, more price-conscious consumers. Okay, now we've seen there's a reference to the attached material. Now, the news article is attached material, and even though we haven't been told to use it, it's obviously clearly relevant. So what I think we should do now is go down to see if there's any more info we can collect from the attached material before we come back to actually plan our answer. Okay, now I can't get all the reference material on screen, but basically it's about Palo and True launching a major expansion of their training operations. So as the context hinted at, they're using apprentices to deliver low-cost services that are supervised by experienced hairdressers, and they're doing that to attract the budget-conscious customers. Now, this is a smart move. It lets them lower prices without dropping their service quality, and the article makes it clear that this is part of a wider strategic shift into the mid-market. But for Trimayr, this is creating pressure. We can't just sit still and not react. We need to find ways to adapt our own business model in response to this. So we've got to think about how we are going to do this. So let's go back up to our subtask A section. Now we know we've got 22 minutes for this task. We're going to need about 2 minutes to plan and actually read the material that we've just gone through. So we've got to make sure we budget for the reading and planning in our time. So we've got about, let's say, 20 minutes to write. Now, the question is asking how Trimayr could develop its business model in response to change. So we need a framework that really helps us explore realistic strategic options. So the model we'll use here is buy, partner, build, invest, incubate, because this is a practical, real-world model that outlines 5 common ways a business can evolve. So we can buy a business, form a partnership, build something new in-house, invest in others, or support internal or external innovation more directly. Now, this fits this scenario perfectly because Trimayr is trying to respond to a competitor's strategic move. So we need a structured way to explore the range of possible responses from fast external actions to long-term internal development. And by using a model, by using this model, it keeps us really focused, it keeps us strategic, and it keeps us balanced. And also we can break down our timings even more. So we know we gave ourselves 20 minutes of writing time, and we have 5 options, and we might want to put a summary in there too. So we say 6 short sections. So if we divide our 20 minutes of writing time divided by the 6, it means that we're going to be giving ourselves 3.5 minutes per short section. And now also we think about the marks. We saw it as worth 12 marks. That means that we should be aiming for about 2 marks per section. And what this does, by having an awareness of the marks and the timing, obviously the timing is really, really important, but having an awareness of the marks, it gives you the confidence to think, okay, I've written enough here to get my 2 marks. I can move on. But obviously, if you worked out and you think, well, this is worth 5 marks, this section, well, obviously you're going to spend a lot more time on it, give a lot more detail, all that kind of stuff. So by giving it 2 marks, by having an awareness of the marks, it gives you that confidence to move on. Okay, so I think we've got a nice plan to start our subtask A. Now we can start to build our answer up, and we can now move down to the answer screen to do that. Pass the reference material onto our 6 short sections. So we're going to start with by, because that's the way the kind of model sets out. I don't have to do any extra thinking. I'm just going to give it the way the model says. And there are a few things that we may want to include here. The first thing is you may want to bring in a real world example, something that kind of gives this option kind of realism and kind of saying, oh, well, actually this approach really works. Now, an example we could use is L'Oreal acquiring the Body Shop. And what we're doing here by introducing a real world example, it shows how acquisition can be used to reach a new customer base or reposition a brand. And that's exactly what we're trying to do in our answer. And then I would talk about 2 different options for Trimayr. The first option would be, obviously we're looking at acquisition here, a mid-market or a budget salon chain. So the first acquisition is a salon chain. Now that gives us immediate access to the price-sensitive customer group and helps us respond to Palo and True's move. Now the other option, again, acquisition, because that's what we're dealing with here, would be to acquire a hair care product manufacturer. Now that could strengthen our supply chain, reduce reliance on third parties, and give us exclusive product rights. Now, these are 2 different options. They're very different options, and they support different strategic aims. One is about reach, and the other is about differentiation and margin. Now, one thing else I might have to add here is the potential drawbacks of these options. Cost, integration risks, and cultural fit. These are kind of the stereotypical characteristics of the drawbacks to acquisition. But what it shows here is we're not just listing ideas, we're actually thinking critically. We're actually analyzing the options themselves. Okay, so there we go. Do you think that's worth 2 marks? We've got a real world example saying why it would be a good option. We've given 2 different ideas that are showing the strategic approach differently, and then we've weighed up some drawbacks to them too. So quite a lot to do in 3 minutes, but we're focusing on the 2 marks, and I think that would definitely get us our 2 marks. Now we've got partner. Again, there's a few different angles we could take here, a few different options. So a few different partnerships we could explore. Now the first partnership idea is with a training provider. Now that would help us scale our academy and offer more flexible or lower cost learning like we see that Palo and True are doing. So we've given our idea and we've given the reason why we think it's a good idea. Or we could partner with a hair care brand. Now we're not just going to say this is an idea. We've also just got to say why we think it would be a good idea or what it would achieve by doing so. And that would give us access to new or exclusive treatments which could help us stand out from the competition. Now, the big advantage here with partnership is speed and flexibility. It means that we can act quickly without the cost or risk of building something ourselves. But also, there is a drawback. We need to make sure it's really well managed. That is the partnership. So we avoid issues with quality control, or a word we used a lot in the pre-seen, consistency. We know how important that is. Okay, so that's option 1, buy. We've done option 2, partner. Now we can move on to our option 3 of the model, which is built. Now this is a pretty ambitious option. So we could suggest building a new low-cost sub-brand. You know, we've got Trimayr Sheen and Trimayr Pop. We could expand that to capture some of the down market customers too. Or we expand Pop to include an apprentice-led offering, you know, very similar to what Palo and True are doing. Now, there's some advantages here, so we're going to analyze what it's doing well. That means we've got full control. We don't have to worry about the consistency like we saw up here. We don't have to worry about the integration and cultural effects like here. We've got the full control and obviously better integration with our existing brand because our brand just expanding. But there's downsides to building. One of them is that it's slow. It's resource heavy. So it may not be a really practical option in the short term. And that's something we may want to flag in the summary. Okay, then we can move on to invest. So this is a lower risk, lower control option. So we could suggest investing in an early stage product company or a training tech firm. Product company. And I'll just put tech firm here. Okay, now this gives us a foot in the door on innovation, but it means we don't have to run it ourselves. But again, we want to analyze it. What are the upsides? What are the downsides? Well, again, it's slower than some of the other options, and we won't have much control. I'll put less control. But it does show that we're thinking long term and being proactive. And then finally, for our model, we've got incubate. So this is about supporting innovation more actively, either internally or externally. So we might launch a new innovation program. And that could be done via our Trimayr Academy. Or we might work with a startup to co-develop new approaches, to training or styling. And again, we want to give some reasons why this could be good ideas. So it's going to give us long-term capability. So we're thinking much more long-term here. And it also aligns really well with our brand. But some downsides, it takes time. And it takes sustained investment to make it work. So there we go. That is our model. Remember, we're trying to hoover up 2 marks per section. I think they're really detailed answers. Now, again, I'm giving you a structured framework for a perfect answer. I realize you don't have that much time. 3 minutes isn't long in the exam. But what I'm showing you is kind of a perfect approach. So in summary, you might want to wrap up with something like, whilst building something new, maybe too slow and expensive, partnerships and targeted investments offer Trimayr the chance to respond quickly, innovate flexibly, and stay competitive in the mid-market. And what we're actually doing there is showing balance and giving a clear view of what we'd actually recommend.
So there we have it, 5 key videos to get you started with your exam preparation. I hope you found them useful, but the reality is that this is just the starting point and you'll need to do a lot more preparation over the next few weeks to improve your chances of passing this tricky exam. And to that end, we have a number of options available. The video clips you've just seen are taken from our course content. And our courses are designed to help you ultimately pass the exam. We want to minimize your study time. And of course, we want to ensure that you're getting your value for your money. So if you want more of what you saw today, you want to check out our full pre-seen analysis pack. And that basically includes the full videos from which those clips were taken, from the pre-seen analysis videos through to the top 10 analysis, the strategic analysis, industry analysis, and in addition to that, we've also got 30 pre-seen questions that are designed to help you consolidate your knowledge and understanding of the pre-seen company. Pre-seen analysis is a crucial first step, but passing the exam requires developing your exam technique and lots of practice. So the best all-round comprehensive solution is the Astranti Premium course. On that, in addition to everything you get in the pre-seen analysis pack, you'll also get 5 mock exams. And those mock exams are written according to the pre-seen company. They're not generic and they don't have generic solutions. They're applied to the pre-seen and they're based on the top 10 issues. So you'll get questions in the mock exam that they'll have a good chance of coming up in the real exam. In addition to those mock exams, you can get mock marking and feedback. And this is where you'll submit a mock exam to your dedicated marker and they will mark that and give you a fully annotated script with feedback and annotations. And they also provide a 9-page document with feedback that you can apply in your next mock. In addition to that, we've got our exam technique video series. Exam technique is really important in this exam. And so our exam technique video series has 13 chapter study texts and accompanying videos taking you through every aspect of exam technique, right from understanding the exam through to interpreting the requirements, answer planning, writing technique, and time management. Really valuable course that will help you a lot developing those soft skills that you need to do well in this exam. Alongside that, we have 3 live masterclasses that run throughout the course, from the first one that's looking at the pre-seen through to later ones that look more at exam technique and theory revision to help you get ready. Included in the premium, you get access to tutor and mentor support, and you'll be able to access our discussion hub where you can post your questions and talk with other students and tutors about any questions and queries you may have. And our premium course comes with our double pass guarantee, and that's exclusive to premium course students. It's a double guarantee because if you don't pass, if you take this course and you don't pass the exam, we'll give it you again for free with no extra charge. And you also have a 14-day money-back guarantee. So if after 14 days on the course you're not happy, you can get a refund, no questions asked. So whatever your situation, we believe we have the solution for you at Astranti, and you can find out more at astranti.com/CIMA. Thanks for watching.